right, everyone, get ready for this because today we are taking a deep dive into a world where fencing, like the sport fencing, meets being in the military.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique combo. And we're going to be exploring this thanks to a recent news story about Major Adelia Imhof. She's an Army officer, but she's also a nationally ranked fencer.
Huh. I don't think I'd ever, picture those two things together.
No, me neither. And that's why we're doing a deep dive.
Right. What could you possibly learn from, fencing that would make you good at being in the Army?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It's a very fascinating question. And it really shows how much we tend to put knowledge into different little boxes. Like fencing is over here and then military operations are way over there, right?
Yeah.
But when we actually look deeper, there are definitely connections there. So let's do that. Let's look deeper. So the article we have about this doesn't give us a ton of detail about Major Imhof's background, but we do know that she's an operations officer at Fort Huachuca. And she comes from a family with a really long history of military service. Like her grandfather served in World War II.
Wow.
Her father was in the Air Force. And now she's carrying on that tradition in the Army.
Wow. A real family legacy.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And one thing that was interesting to me, and I think maybe it was interesting to you too, is that the article highlights Imhof's reason for going into the Army. It was this desire to serve a higher purpose, and to protect others.
Yeah, it must be in the genes, huh?
Yeah, and I think that really stuck with me too. Okay, so we've got this accomplished soldier who's also like a top-tier fencer. But the article doesn't just mention this as a fun fact. Imhof actually says that fencing taught her really valuable skills that she still uses in her job in the military.
Interesting.
Yeah. So this is where things get really, really interesting for me. Could you break that down for us a little? How are those two things connected?
Okay, well, think about what it actually takes to be good at fencing. It's a sport, first of all, that needs you to have, super fast reflexes.
Right.
And you have to think strategically.
Yeah.
And then on top of all that, you have to know what your opponent is going to do even before they do it.
Wow.
And you're always having to adapt to all these changing situations around you, making split-second decisions, sometimes with a lot of pressure. Now, doesn't that sound like what you would need to do if you were on a military operation?
Oh, okay. I'm starting to see the parallels here, but could you give me a really specific example to help me understand?
Yeah, totally. Okay, let's take the parry riposte.
Okay.
I mean, it's like a classic fencing move.
Okay.
So basically, the fencer will block their opponent's attack.
Right.
That's the parry.
Okay.
And then right after that, they'll immediately follow up with their own attack, which is the riposte. Now, to pull that off, you don't just need physical skill. You also have to know what your opponent is thinking and then use whatever opening they give you.
Wow.
So that same idea can be applied to a military thing too. Think about, a counteroffensive or something where one unit figures out the enemy's going to attack, so they defend, and then right away they launch their own attack while the enemy's off balance.
Oh, wow. I would never have thought to connect those two things.
Yeah.
But that makes Imhof's quote about fencing being physical chess even more true.
Right. It really does get at the mental agility you need and the strategic depth of fencing and military stuff. It's like you're outmaneuvering your opponent, not just trying to overpower them.
That's really cool. I kind of want to learn more about Imhof's journey as a fencer now, because the article mentions some pretty amazing things. It says that she started fencing when she was only 12.
Wow.
Yeah, she learned from her mother, who was also a competitive fencer.
Oh, wow.
Another family legacy. And then she went on to compete at the national level for over 10 years, from 1998 to 2012. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And get this, while she was in college, she even started teaching fencing, which I think shows how much of a leader she is,
Oh, yeah.
And she was clearly super passionate about it. It wasn't just a hobby for her.
Right.
This is a huge part of her life.
Yeah, that level of commitment is really impressive. But I'm curious, for people like me who've never even held a fencing sword, what does it take to be that good? What kind of dedication are we talking about here?
Well, imagine having to train for hours and hours every day. You'd have to really focus on your reflexes and perfect your footwork.
Yeah.
You'd have to practice these really complicated attack and defense moves until they're just automatic,
Oh, wow.
It's definitely physically demanding. You need strength, you need agility, and you definitely need endurance. But then there's the mental challenge too, which it's huge because you're constantly trying to figure out what your opponent's going to do next.
Yeah.
You're making decisions while under a lot of pressure. It's a lot.
It's like that mental chess match you were talking about.
Exactly. But then there's the psychological side of things too, right? Imhof mentioned mental and psychological benefits of fencing. What are those?
Yeah, I was wondering about that too.
Well, fencing really helps you build resilience, like more than almost any other sport I can think of, because you're always facing setbacks. Like you might lose a match, and then you have to look at your mistakes and come back stronger than before.
Right.
It teaches you to have discipline, to respect your opponent, and to stay calm even when things get really intense. And I mean, those are all really important qualities to have in the Army too, especially when things get really crazy.
It is interesting how those two things, fencing and the military, kind of lead to some of the same traits. I have to admit, you're making me want to try fencing now.
Really?
Yeah. But Imhof does say that you don't have to already be super athletic to start.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she even says that being fit isn't as important as just wanting to try it, which is encouraging, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, sometimes people think that certain things are too hard to even try. But what Imhof is saying is that all you really need is to be interested and willing to try new things.
Right.
That's all it takes.
So speaking of trying new things and exploring new things, the article did mention something, kind of a wrinkle in Imhof's journey as a fencer. It seems like there aren't that many places to do fencing near Fort Huachuca.
Oh.
Yeah. She even said that she would have to drive all the way to Tucson to train, which is like an hour away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
You know, given all the benefits we just talked about, can you imagine if they had a fencing program right there on base?
Yeah.
Think about how many soldiers could build those valuable skills we were talking about.
I know. And it sounds like Imhof would be up for making that happen. She actually asked other fencers in the area to contact her.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Maybe someone listening will take her up on that.
I hope so. That'd be so cool. It would show how great of a leader she is, and it would show that she wants to share her passion with others.
Yeah, I agree. But even if a whole fencing program doesn't start up at Fort Huachuca, I still think that Imhof's story shows us how important it is to just look for connections, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like finding common ground, maybe even through something like fencing, can really help build a sense of community, especially in the military where you have to work together, you know, as a team.
For sure. And I bet having shared interests like fencing can help people connect and feel like they're a part of something.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a close environment like the military.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of brings us back to the idea of Imhof's story being part of this huge 250th anniversary celebration for the U.S. Army.
It's really cool. It reminds us that institutions like the Army are made up of individuals.
Yes.
Each with their own unique talents, experiences, and passions.
Yeah.
It's inspiring.
It really is. And when those individuals are empowered to be themselves, to be their whole selves, that's when real change and progress can happen. But before we get too much further into that, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about what really stood out to me from all this is how Imhof's story makes us rethink where certain skills can be used. You know, we always want to put things into neat little boxes, like fencing is a sport and the military is a career, but Imhof shows us that it's not that simple.
It is a powerful example of, how the stuff we learn in one part of our lives can actually help us in other parts too.
Yeah.
Like we always hear about transferable skills, but Imhof's story really brings that idea to life.
It does. It makes you wonder, what other connections are out there that we just haven't, noticed yet?
Yeah.
What seemingly random skills or hobbies could people have that could actually be really useful in their jobs or even their personal lives?
Or maybe you're a painter, and having that keen eye for detail actually makes you a really good negotiator.
Wow. I love that. It's all about recognizing that different experiences are valuable and being open to those unexpected connections.
Exactly.
But speaking of different experiences, I wanted to ask about Imhof's recent fencing competitions. The article mentions that she was in 3 USA fencing events and did really well.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, it's impressive, especially since she had taken a break from competing for a bit.
It really is. It shows how dedicated she is. And I think it also shows that fencing is something you can do at any age and no matter your skill level.
That's true.
And I like Imhof's perspective on that. She says that fencing is, for everyone. It doesn't matter how athletic you are or if you've ever done it before. The most important thing is that you want to try it.
I like that. It's a good reminder that we shouldn't let, what we think we know about something or what we think we're capable of stop us from trying new things.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes all it takes is a little bit of curiosity and like a willingness to step outside of our comfort zones.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe you'll discover some hidden talent or like learn some new skill you never knew you had.
Exactly.
But going back to Imhof being at Fort Huachuca, it is interesting that there's not much of a fencing scene there. It makes you think like, maybe there's something they're missing out on.
Totally. I mean, thinking about all the benefits we just talked about, can you imagine if there was a fencing program right there on base?
Yeah.
It'd be a great opportunity for the soldiers there to develop all those skills we were talking about, like strategic thinking, mental resilience, and how to be adaptable.
Yeah.
All while doing something that's fun and rewarding.
I know. And it could also create a sense of community and, camaraderie, which is so important in the military. I really like that Imhof put out a call for other fencers in the area to connect with her.
Me too.
Maybe someone listening will reach out.
I hope so.
It would be a really great example of someone taking initiative and showing that one person's passion can really make a difference. But even if a fencing program doesn't happen at Fort Huachuca, I still think that Imhof's story has something important to teach us.
What's that?
It reminds us to be open to new experiences, to look for connections, and to never underestimate those skills or hobbies that seem like they don't really matter.
Yeah, I agree. Never know how all those experiences might come together and enrich your life in ways you never expected.
I like that. That's really well said. Now I want to kind of zoom out a little and think about Imhof's story in the bigger context of the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary.
It's a great example of how each person's story contributes to this larger story of an institution. The Army is more than just tanks and uniforms. It's made up of people, each with their own unique journey.
Yeah, and Imhof's experience really highlights the different talents and experiences that people bring to their service.
And so this brings us to a question for you, the listener. What stands out to you from Imhof's story? What parts of it connect with your own experiences?
Is it the idea that skills you learn in one area can actually be useful in another? Or maybe it's the importance of following your passions, even if they seem really specific or not related to your job.
Or maybe it's made you curious about fencing. Whatever it is, Imhof's story shows just how powerful individual passion can be and the ripple effects it can have.
Her journey from the world of fencing to the U.S. Army really challenges us to think differently about how seemingly different fields can actually be connected. And it encourages us to embrace the many different sides of our own experiences.
And to recognize that each of us has a lot of potential just waiting to be discovered.
Speaking of discovering potential, remember that this whole deep dive started with just one story, one soldier's experience. And it makes you think about how many other cool stories are out there, just within the Army.
Yeah, 250 years worth of stories.
Yeah.
And each one is about a person who decided to serve, and brought their own skills and passions and just who they are to that.
And it's really those individual stories that shape what the Army is all about, right? It's not just battles and technology.
Right.
It's the courage and the resilience and the ingenuity of the people who are in it.
I like to think of it as a huge mosaic. Each individual story, no matter how small it seems, adds a little piece to the big picture.
Yeah.
When you put all those pieces together, that's what makes the Army what it is.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it makes me wonder what other, connections and talents are out there that we just haven't found yet. What if we could use the full potential of every single person?
Yeah, it's a really exciting thought. Just imagine what could be possible if we encouraged everyone to embrace what they're passionate about and explore how those things could connect with their jobs or their service.
So I'm going to leave you, our listener, with a challenge. What is something you're good at or a hobby you have that could actually help you at work or in your personal life?
Maybe you're really into fitness and all that discipline and focus you have from that actually helps you be successful in business meetings.
Right.
Or maybe you're a big video game person and those strategic thinking skills you have actually make you a really good problem solver at work.
Yeah, whatever it is, don't underestimate those things that you enjoy and that make you you. Embrace them, explore them, and see where they take you. You just never know.
Yeah, you might surprise yourself.
Yeah, you really might.
Just like Major Imhof. You might find that what you're passionate about and what you're meant to do actually connect in ways you never thought of. So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
Until next time.